This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Preston Poling, who is also known as the Bearded Miniaturist, makes award-winning, world-renowned creations all in miniature and displays them at the Bearded Miniaturist studio in Louisville, Kentucky. He's been in the news lately over a kerfuffle with the Kentucky State Fair, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first, I want to talk to him about his amazing work. Preston joins us via Zoom from Kentucky. Hi, Preston.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the program with us. First of all, how did you get into miniatures in the first place?
Well, I started in miniatures in 2020 during lockdown. I had started recreating the television set from the show Frasier, just in my spare time for fun. And that really took off on social media, so I kind of stuck with it even after COVID, made a couple more little builds, and then I competed on the television show, the Canadian television show Best in Miniature on CBC Gem, and after that, this is just sort of what I do now.
So, were you someone who was always artistic as a child, or was this something you just discovered later in life?
No, it was just something that I discovered when I had attempted to build the iconic fireplace from Frasier. It was really difficult, but I wanted to make it in a way that people could identify it easily, and fans of the show couldn't look at it and pick it apart and say, well, it's supposed to have this or supposed to have that. I wanted it to be really identifiable, and I wanted it to perfectly mimic what we saw on the screen. So I don't have a background in that. I just was reproducing what I saw as I saw it.
What kind of materials are you using? Because, I mean, you put people to shame when it comes to what you do as far as your artwork. And like you say, you've only been doing it for a couple of years, and it was basically a COVID project.
Right, yeah. So that first fireplace, I had done that completely wrong. It was my first piece, and there's all sorts of florist foam and styrofoam and plaster of Paris and all kinds of stuff inside that fireplace. But I found that using the different materials and perfecting the use of those materials was something that really interested me. So that's kind of where even the encouragement online was enough to keep me going, but it was the fun of learning new materials that I had zero experience with, and how to make them look right.
Do you have a favorite topic that you like to depict? You've already described a couple of things from television. What is your favorite scene?
Well, one of my favorites that I've done was the house that I did on Best in Miniature, because I got to do the start to finish, the inside, the outside, every room. And I pulled everything that I did for that house out of my imagination. So I didn't really have any guidance. No one was telling me recreate this thing, or it wasn't a customer buying a piece that was directing how I did things. I had carte blanche to just take it and go with it. So that was probably one of my funnest builds.
You know, I am somebody who enjoys the look and feel of model railroading, even though I haven't done it since I was a kid myself. But I often watch videos of model railroading, and I often enjoy the scenic aspect of it, what people do. Have you ever thought of doing something like that?
You know, the model railroading and the Little Canada setup, that kind of stuff, it's really, really cool. And it does capture my imagination. And the miniature stuff has always captured my imagination, even as a kid going to Chicago to the Museum of Science and Industry and seeing Colleen Moore's Fairy Castle and the train set that they have there. You know, it's always been really, really interesting. You look at it and you wonder what it would be like to shrink yourself down and be the only person in this set. You know, it strokes the imagination, and we tend to lose that as adults. You know, we look at stuff and we forget that our mind can shrink us down, and we forget we can use our imagination to do this fun stuff. So it really appeals to me. The model railroading too, like no small is too small. You know, that stuff is smaller than the scale I work in, which is 1/12 scale, but still it's fascinating stuff.
Now, again, this was something that was a COVID project, and it has taken off. What was your day job?
I own a residential painting company here in Louisville. So I paint interiors and exteriors of homes here in the Louisville area.
Oh, cool. So now that you've been doing this and you're in some shows, And you're online. Has it taken off as a business as well?
Yeah, so I do about 50-50 now. I do about half the painting and half miniatures. So I'm either on a paint job or in my studio most of the time. And I really like it. I do custom dollhouses. I do restorations. If you've had a childhood dollhouse stored in the basement or the attic and it's got, a little long in the tooth, and you want to get it restored and modernized, I do that. I teach courses. I do consultations. So hobbyists who have gotten so far in their build, but now they have a question about lighting or electrical or how to do something, I'll do consultation work. So yeah, anything to do with miniatures, I'm your guy. So I don't usually have booths set up where I sell and make large quantities of things to sell. More of my stuff is custom commissions. So if you want something, reach out to me on thebeardedminiaturist.com. Tell me what it is you want. We'll talk about it, and then I'll custom create that for you.
Excellent. So now I've got to bring up the whole situation with the Kentucky State Fair because, this is how I found you, right? I saw this story about the Kentucky State Fair, and I thought, well, this is interesting. But then I looked at your work, and I'm thinking, wow, this is very impressive. And I also think that, to be honest, the Kentucky State Fair kind of blew it on this one. You created a miniature piece, and you called it Casting Couch. Describe it for us. Correct. Describe it for us and why you called it that.
Okay, well, there is a very, very popular set in adult films and GIFs and memes, and it's all the same set. And that set is the vantage point of sitting behind a desk, looking at this black leather couch with a window with the blinds beside of it. And in theory, they bring models on to audition for adult films in the adult film industry. The gag is that there is no role that they're really auditioning for. So they call it the casting couch, and it's become really, really well known and recognizable. And, it's all tongue in cheek. It's all, everybody knows what's going on in the industry. It's not nobody's pulling one over on anybody. So it's just kind of a gag, it's kind of a gag. And I knew because of the minimalist style of this room, I had a feeling it would get under the radar for a little bit and that people would see it. Some people would know what it was, and they would kind of enjoy that inside joke and give them something a little more interesting to look at than grandma's bedroom,
Well, that I was going to bring that up. At what point did, because you entered this, at what point did somebody at the Kentucky State Fair say, wait a minute, how long did that take place?
It was up for about a week. It was judged. It won third place, and it went viral before they had taken it down because of what it was and winning the ribbon and being in the Kentucky State Fair. That kind of it created this perfect storm. So it went viral because everybody was intrigued. And once it did, one of the fair board members who was already up in arms because I won the Best in Show ribbon this year, which broke his 3-year streak. I won it for a different build, my recreation of The Walking Dead. He was already upset about that. So once he found out what this was, he was the same one that had my another build kicked out last year, but it was kicked out before the fair opened. So nobody knew about it. They just called and said, come take it home. This year, I wanted to kind of get one over a little bit, and I did, and it caused a bit of a stir. So he snatched it up and took it in the back room, and I had to go find out what happened to it.
What was the one that didn't see the light of day the previous year?
The previous year, I had kind of a sexy dungeon build that I had made. It's not often that I get to kind of go into the depths of my mind and create what I want because I'm very busy with custom commissions and things like that. So every once in a while I get to build what I want to build. And last year it was a small kind of little dungeon scene with, some chains and a bed and a vanity. And, it was a lot more blatant than the casting couch. I get that. But, it was more creepy than anything else. And it kind of flew in the face of traditional dollhouse building, which he didn't like.
Gotcha. So as you say, you've done 50-50 as far as business and, your day job and doing this. With the kerfuffle with what took place at the Kentucky State Fair, I found you and I'm talking to you right now. What kind of publicity have you received from it, and has it enhanced your business?
All of the publicity that I've gotten has been really, really good. People that I meet around town, they recognize me from one thing or another to do with the casting couch fair kerfluffle, and so they'll point it out and they'll be like, "Oh, the Bearded Miniaturist, right? You did the casting couch," and we'll talk for a while. So it's really within the miniature community with certain people. There are other events that have asked me to bring it just because they like the controversy, they think it's cool, and it's a winning build, so the craftsmanship is there. So like Philadelphia Miniatura is a big event. I won that a couple years ago when I attended. I won first place there. She reached out and asked if I would bring it to display there, which I will. So a lot of the feedback has been really positive. Unfortunately, the gentleman who was so upset on the state fair board is also a board member of the Louisville Miniature Club, which I was a member of for 4 years, and this stunt kind of cost me my membership in that club, but that was about the only fallout.
Wow. You mentioned the miniaturist community. How large of the is said community?
Well, once you get in the community, you realize that it's everywhere. Every state, lots of countries. It's a really, really popular hobby. Everything from traditional to modern stuff, kind of like what I do, and everything in between. People just are really fascinated by small objects. They're fascinated by it. And it's a really big community. And for the most part, most of us are interested in seeing what we can do that hasn't been done, or doing things that mean something to us, or just doing things that are fun, that make other people think or laugh or talk about it. So everybody's got their niche in that hobby or that art form, but there are a lot of us. There really are.
Well, you talk about a lot of people being fascinated with the art form, and I got to admit, I'm fascinated with the art form. Again, I saw your work and I thought, wow, I need to talk to this guy regardless of the Kentucky State Fair situation. I just think this is interesting. So congratulations on what you do. People can go to your website, which is thebeardedminiaturist.com. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us, Preston.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And you can find me on Facebook at the Bearded Miniaturist Studios, or you can find me on Instagram at the Bearded Miniaturist and the underscores between each word.
Excellent. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Preston Poling, a.k.a. the Bearded Miniaturist. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0786, and you'll find links to Preston's site.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.